The night, you see, was a shroud, impenetrable. Not even the moon dared to cast its silver gaze into the Sultan's private chambers, cloaked in a darkness deeper than mere absence of light. A darkness woven from centuries of unspoken truths, of ambitions buried beneath cold marble, of air thick with the dust of forgotten whispers. Behind that heavy curtain of deepest crimson silk, a barrier thin as a secret, yet impenetrable as a mountain, a game was unfolding. A dangerous dance, played not with blades, but with glances, with breath, with the sheer weight of expectation. You understand, don't you? It was a silent ballet of power, a silent war where the battlefield was a sultan's bed, the prize, the very soul of an empire. No servant, no guard, not even the ancient stones of the palace walls themselves dared to listen. They knew their place. But I was there. A shadow among shadows, a silent witness behind this very pillar, my gaze piercing the velvet gloom, seeing what no mortal eye was meant to behold. What I saw, a truth so potent it could shatter the very foundations of this dynasty, built painstakingly on the blood of ancestors and sacred oaths sworn under an unforgiving sky. Imagine, if you will, the weight of such a moment. Not merely a life, no. Lives are fleeting, cheap coin in these gilded halls. What hung in the balance was the unbroken bloodline, the very future of an empire stretching from sun-baked deserts to the icy edges of the known world. One fleeting touch. A simple kiss, perhaps accidental, perhaps a calculated move, sweet as honey yet laced with the subtle poison of ambition. A single, reckless choice. A breath held, then released. A moment of madness, or was it the coldest calculation? You tell me. For in that brief, treacherous instant, the threads of fate began to unravel, weaving a new tapestry that would forever alter the course of history, irrevocably. The air, thick with the heavy perfume of jasmine and rose, clung to the velvet curtains and the gilded ceilings of the Sultan's chambers. A deceptive sweetness, wouldn't you agree? For in this palace, every breath drawn was a measure of risk, every whispered word a potential betrayal. The very stones, carved with intricate patterns, seemed to absorb the silent screams, the unspoken fears of generations. Here, luxury was not comfort. It was a gilded cage, its bars forged from ambition and lineage. The Sultan, distant and unknowable, was often merely the prize, the ultimate key to a power they craved more than life itself. Step with me, if you will, through these hushed corridors, past eunuchs whose faces were as unreadable as ancient scrolls. We descend into the labyrinthine heart of the harem, a world unto itself, walled off from the city's clamor, yet pulsating with a drama far more intense than any public square. This was no mere collection of women, this was the crucible of the dynasty, where the future of an empire was quietly, ruthlessly forged. Each birth, each death, each passing favor, a tremor that could shake the very foundations of power. They were jewels, these women, each chosen for a spark, a beauty, a lineage that promised favor. Bright-eyed concubines, their laughter like scattered pearls, yet their eyes held a shrewdness that belied their youth. Sultanas, resplendent in silk and gold, their smiles radiant yet razor-sharp, honed by years of silent warfare. But beneath the shimmering fabrics, behind those captivating eyes, lay not tenderness, but the glint of 1,000 hidden daggers. Their beauty was a weapon, their grace a shield, and their ambition a hunger that knew no bounds. They were players in a game without rules, where the stakes were not merely their lives, but the very bloodline of the empire. For a woman here, her only power was through the men she bore or the men she influenced, and for that, no price was too high. Observe that discarded silk scarf, carelessly left upon a divan. A simple oversight? Perhaps. Or perhaps a silent challenge, a coded message, a death warrant waiting to be discovered. Even the choice of a flower in a vase, the tilt of a head during a tea ceremony, Every gesture, every detail was imbued with a terrifying significance. For these women, life was a constant performance, a silent play of power where one misstep, one perceived weakness, could lead to oblivion. The air itself seemed to hum with unspoken threats, the faint aroma of poison always a possibility, a phantom presence lurking amidst the exotic spices. Who dared to trust when every servant's ear was a potential conduit for ruin, every loyal glance a mask for betrayal? Their days were spent in an exquisite torment of vigilance, their nights haunted by the ghosts of those who had failed to endure. Remember, my friend, this was a theater where no rehearsals were permitted. Each role was played in earnest, with no second acts, no retakes. The script was written in real time, in the fleeting glances, the subtle shifts of allegiance, the sudden disappearances of rivals. The stage was set, not with painted backdrops, but with the very lives of those who dared to dream of power. And the audience? The Sultan, his court, and the shadows themselves, watching every move, every subtle maneuver. To them, it was often a spectacle, a necessary cruelty to maintain order, a fascinating dance of fate and ambition. There was no good or evil here, merely survival. No kindness, only calculation. No friendship, only alliances of convenience, easily shattered by a whisper, a promise, or the chilling silence that followed an unexpected death, swallowed by the thick palace walls. The palace walls, for all their grandeur, were but witnesses to an endless, brutal ballet of ambition. And the most dangerous dancers of all wore the brightest silks, their hands capable of both caress and deadly intent. The true power, the enduring legacy, often lay not with the men who ruled, but with the women who survived these golden cages, their legacy etched in blood and betrayal, a testament to an unyielding will to secure their place, or that of their sons, in the great, terrible tapestry of history. This was the game, and only the most cunning, the most ruthless, ever truly won. The air is thick, weighted by history, by the hushed breathing of an empire that sleeps unaware. I stand here, behind this carved pillar, a silent witness to a moment that echoes through the ages. The moonlight, sharp as a dervish's blade, slices through the lattice of the chamber window, painting silver patterns on the polished marble floor. Every dust mote dances in its beam, oblivious to the gravity of this night. This is how it begins often, does it not? With a breath held, a silence too profound to be natural. The Sultan, a man whose shoulders carry the very heavens, whose decisions dictate the fate of 1,000 lands, stands there. His crown, though absent from his head, weighs upon his very soul. He is a man of empire, yes, but tonight he is merely a man, yearning for a truth beyond the gilded cage of his own making. The weight of his bloodline, the crushing expectation of his dynasty, for a moment, they are but whispers in the wind. And she, her name matters not, for in this tapestry of fate, she is merely the thread pulled loose. Her presence, a whisper of silk against the midnight air, a scent of jasmine that battles the incense. She moves with the hesitant grace of a gazelle, drawn into the lion's den, yet with an undeniable magnetic pull. A pawn, perhaps, in a game unseen, or a queen in waiting, unknowingly sharpening her own dagger. Then it happens, a subtle shift in the air, a quickening of unseen pulses. Their eyes meet across the vast expanse of the Sultan's private world, a chasm bridged by a single, unspoken question. And when their lips finally touch, ah, my dear, the world did not merely pause, it shattered. This was no simple touch of flesh, no fleeting indulgence in the quiet hours. This was the sundering of an ancient oath, the shattering of a sacred seal that had bound generations. A transgression whispered into the very stones of this palace, a betrayal not just of tradition, but of an unspoken covenant with fate itself. The future of this empire, stretched taut like a drumskin, vibrated with a discordant hum. Can you feel it? The tremors, even now? Near them, unnoticed, a crystal goblet, brimming with sweet sherbet, tottered. In the sudden seismic shift of their shared moment, it fell. The liquid, once so inviting, spread across the fine rug like a pool of spilled blood, its sweetness turning, in that instant, to the bitter taste of poison. A premonition, perhaps, for those with eyes to see beyond the curtain of desire. No one should have witnessed this. No eye should have peered from the shadows to record this forbidden gesture. No tongue should ever have tasted the dangerous sweetness, the insidious bitterness of this moment. For this kiss, this single, silent act, it was not merely a beginning. It was a prophecy. A harbinger of the storm that would soon tear through the heart of the dynasty, leaving only ruin and regret in its wake. And the silence that followed? It was the loudest sound of all. The air in the seraglio. It shifted. Do you feel it, even now? The subtle tremor that precedes an earthquake. A single night, a solitary indiscretion, yet its ripples spread through stone and silk like poison through a vein. The court, a living, breathing creature of 1,000 eyes and 10,000 ears, knew. They always do. Not with proof, not with declaration, but with the changing of the wind, the flicker in a eunuch's gaze, the sudden, unnatural silence that falls before the storm. What began as a whisper, a breath stolen behind a fan, became a gust. Then a gale. An avalanche of speculation, each rumor sharper than the last, carving new paths through the fragile edifice of order. The Sultan's secret, a fragile thing born of desire, was now a weapon in the hands of many. For some, it was the sunrise after a long night of waiting, a chink in the armor of a well-established power, a chance to ascend, to push their own bloodline forward, to plant their banner in the shifting sands of the dynasty. They sharpened their ambition, their eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. For others, the loyalists, the established, the mothers of princes whose positions were carved from years of careful maneuvering and calculated alliances, it was a shadow, a dark omen threatening to eclipse their very existence. Their children, their future, their bloodline suddenly stood on ground made perilous. A single misstep, a breath too loud, could shatter everything. This was not just a squabble over silk and jewels, my friends. This was the Game of Thrones, played with daggers cloaked in velvet, with smiles that promised friendship while plotting ruin. And now, the stakes were higher, the rules more brutal. A misplaced glance could be treason, a forgotten favor, a death sentence. Do you remember the Sultan's chambers, the morning after? The faint scent of jasmine and something else, something metallic, and the telltale crimson stain upon a discarded silk robe, proof of a night that defied all law, all tradition. Such evidence, it does not simply vanish, it is made to vanish, erased by hands that know the cost of discovery. And the servant who saw? The one whose trembling fingers may have touched that very silk? His silence was a coin of immense value. Was it bought, sealed with gold and a promise of freedom in a distant land? Or was it taken, violently, brutally, leaving behind only the cold silence of an empty bed, a vacant shadow where a life once stood? Such questions hang heavy in the air, do they not? They always do in these gilded cages. This was no mere scandal. This was the opening salvo in a war, a battle for legacy itself, for the heart of the dynasty. Every word spoken, every alliance forged, every cup offered, each was a step. A step on the thinnest ice of betrayal, where one wrong move meant not just your fall, but the collapse of all you held dear. And the ice? It was already cracking. Do you hear it? That faint rustle. No, not the breeze through the palace windows, but the echo of silk, a whisper from a night long past. A single, illicit breath, drawn in the shadows, then exhaled into the very foundation of this dynasty. That kiss. Do you imagine it was forgotten? A fleeting indiscretion lost to the countless dawns that followed? Oh, my dear, history does not forgive such trespasses. It merely waits. It collects. Sultans rose and fell, their names carved into the annals of power, their conquests redrawing the very maps of the known world. Empires expanded, then contracted, like a vast, breathing beast. Yet, behind the glittering facade of each new reign, the shadow of that secret night, that singular act of defiance against tradition, clung to the throne. A stain, invisible to the eye, yet palpable to those who truly understood the language of these halls. It was an architect of fate, that kiss. It laid an invisible foundation, unseen and unspoken, upon which generations would build their triumphs and their tragedies. Bloodlines, once clear as mountain springs, began to intertwine, merging currents that carried both strength and subtle poison. The whispers of succession grew more tangled, the claims to the throne more convoluted, all rooted in a decision made in the dim light of a forbidden chamber. Betrayals, born of ambition and fear, became the very legends whispered in the seraglio, each act of treachery a petal falling from a poisoned bloom, yet each rooted in the soil enriched by that initial secret. A queen, her power absolute, yet her lineage questioned. A prince, his claim undeniable, yet his very existence a clandestine consequence. The dynasty, yes, it endured. It stretched its mighty arms across continents. But look closely, my dear. Look at the subtle shift in the eyes of its rulers, the tightened grip on the scepter, the ever-present vigilance against unseen enemies. I stand here now, centuries later, my hand brushing this cold marble. And even now, I feel the chilling trace of that decision. The very air, thick with the weight of forgotten oaths and unspoken lies. The price for that singular, forbidden moment was paid, not in gold or in blood, though there was plenty of both, but in the silence that followed. A silence that hollowed out the heart of power, leaving an absence that could never truly be filled. And in that silence, the dynasty, though it survived, was changed forever. Irrevocably.